Do you have any like terrible stories of tales from your travels?
Yeah, so actually leaving Afghanistan and entering Tajikistan, I got stuck in no man's land. So basically I got checked out of Afghanistan. I got stamped out, and the way it is where you leave is there's a long bridge, maybe like a mile long, that you have to cross. That takes like at least like ten minutes to cross. And we got stamped out. The Taliban opened like a locked gate for us and said bye to us, and then we walked across. And then as we were getting to the Tajikistan side, you can see like all like the sandbags, and you can see like a guy with like a rifle like aiming at us, because I don't think many people actually cross this border. And like we were wearing like the local Afghan attire, which they don't wear in Tajikistan. So like we crossed, and as we got closer, it was like a young kid, probably like very early 20s slash teenager, and he looked visibly like scared that we were walking across, like he was shaking. And like we reassured him that we weren't there for any kind of bad doings. And then like we got across, and then when we were waiting for the border to open, me and my friend Joe, who Joe's also English, we were traveling with an American and a German as well. um, we gave our passports in, and he kept like trying to scan it, and it just kept coming up like with something on his screen, and like he was like shaking his head. And then we let our American friend and our German friend uh, get their passport, and they got approved straight away. And then we realized that we actually needed to apply for a visa before coming to Tajikistan, and we didn't actually look into it. We thought it was a visa on arrival, but since the UK left with Brexit, they changed the rule for us. So obviously, our friend Ben on a German passport was able to go through, American was able to go through, and we wasn't actually able to buy a visa. So we had to apply for one online, but it takes 3 to 5 days, and it's notoriously slow for the visa approval in Tajikistan. So we were kind of like left in no man's land. We told our friends just to cross, like just leave us, we'll be fine. And we applied for this visa, but it just looked like we wasn't going to get it anytime soon. And the border closed at 6 p.m. that day. So we thought we were going to be sent back to the Taliban. And if we had got sent back into Afghanistan, we had no permit of visa. We don't have a visa anymore. So it was hard to tell what sort of situation we would have got in. Or the only other thing was just to sleep rough in this like little section of no man's land. But we spoke to the British embassy, and like it felt a bit weird having to call up. Like we were like, I rang up the British embassy, and I was like, we're two British nationals stuck in no man's land between Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And there was just like silence on the other end of the phone, and they were like, could you repeat that please? And I had to explain. They were like, why are you there? Like, and we had to explain that we're like travel creators. They asked, is there a hotel we can stay at? And I'm like, no, we're on a bridge in the middle of no man's land. But they basically said, it's not guaranteed, but leave it with us. We'll do our best. And within 2 hours, they had managed to get visas for us. So the British embassy does have a pool in these countries. Like they were able to sort us out this visa just before the border closed. So that could have been a very bad situation if we didn't get approved. But I feel like me and Joe were quite experienced travelers, so we kind of become desensitized to this sort of stuff. Like we just kind of laughed to ourselves and was like, well, we're probably not going to die, so it's just going to be another story. But as soon as I realized, like, got my camera out, started filming, like, because I feel like people enjoy other people having misfortune nowadays. Like, they're the sort of videos that do well. So you kind of, as a travel content creator, you have to have this in the back of your mind. Whenever something negative happens, you need to be ready to kind of like film the raw interactions of it happening, because like that's what's going to do well. Well, I do have the contact for the British Embassy on WhatsApp now, so I'm sure if I get into any more sticky situations, they can help. Not that they'll be happy to do it, but
That's a good contact to have.
yeah, definitely.
What other stories? Come on, you must have had a few more.
I actually got stuck at the border leaving Tajikistan as well. This was again why I didn't have a good experience in this country. Like, so obviously I got into the country, and then when we were leaving, because I didn't have that much of a good time, we left one day before we were meant to in the evening. So we got a driver to take us up to the border of Kyrgyzstan, which is the next neighboring country, but it's 4,500 meters above sea level up a mountain. So
Wow.
what we didn't realize was that the border is actually closed for citizens of Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. So only tourists can cross the border. So we got a guy to take us to the border. When we got there, it was like an hour drive. They kept saying no, even though we knew it was a 24-hour border, but they wanted money. So we had to bribe them. Once we bribed them, bearing in mind it was like 8 o'clock at night, pitch black, a soldier had to come in the car with us to take us halfway into no man's land. So this no man's land was really, really long. It was about a 20 mile of just barren, like mountain rugged roads. And it was like a snowstorm. So it was thick snow. So we had a contact that was driving from the Kyrgyzstan side to pick us up halfway, and we would swap cars. So when we got all the way up to the no man's land, there was no signal. But because of the snow, the cars from Kyrgyzstan couldn't go up because it was a very tall mountain that they basically drive up to. And it got to the point where we were waiting there for like 2 hours, and our friends, the German American, were like, "Oh, should we just go back to Tajikistan because I don't think they're coming?" But because we'd been checked out of Tajikistan, again, me and Joe couldn't get a visa because we would have had to have applied, and it would have been 3 to 5 days. So we got stuck in no man's land once again, and there was like no way for us to get back in. There was no way for us to go into Kyrgyzstan because walking down the mountain was an option, but it was 10 miles. It was thick snow, extremely cold, and the snow leopards in this area because no one lives there. So yeah, we basically had to sleep in a car. There was 6 of us in a car, like in quite a small car. And then eventually, like a couple of hours later, the car that was meant to pick us up had finally managed to get up the mountain, and we were safe basically. And then yeah, that was just a very long old day. And then it was a 7 hour drive to the nearest town in Kyrgyzstan. But I was quite happy just to finish that chapter. And shortly after, I flew back to England just to chill. So very intense traveling and stressful traveling.
You must have had some serious nights, rough sleeping, just wherever you could find it.
Yeah, like doing the no money challenge, we slept under a bridge in Belgrade. We also had to sleep in an abandoned construction site in Bulgaria as well. And obviously, prior to that challenge, that was the first time I'd ever slept rough in my life. Like I had quite a lucky childhood to the point where I didn't ever have to experience anything like that. But it did make me more like empathetic to homeless people. Like since the challenge, if I see homeless people and I have like food, or I'll give them food. Prior to that, I used to just kind of just keep to myself. So yeah, stuff like that has kind of made me a little bit better in that respect.
Money's an interesting point because